Welcome to This Week in Ex-Mormonism, your one-stop show for the latest and greatest from the ex-Mormon community. Each week, we'll bring you the top clips from your favorite creators like John Dellin, Exmolex, Nuance Ho, RFM, and more.
Hey everybody, today is the day. I'm both excited and scared about this next chapter in my life, but my book is finished. My website pages are ready. I'm a sex trafficking survivor and a mom of 6 kids, and one of the ways I tried to help keep my kids safe online was when they first got their cell phones, I asked them to turn the cell phone in at night. I would keep the chargers in the kitchen, and I would ask them to give me their cell phones before they went to bed. It's really important to have open conversations with your kids about predatory behavior online, to have them set all of their social media accounts to private, and to have open discussions about what is and is not appropriate to message people about online. Make sure that they're only accepting friend requests from people that they know, and take the opportunity to regularly go through their account with them to approve new followers and to look at DMs that are coming in and make sure that there's nothing inappropriate in there. I'm a sex trafficking and PTSD survivor, and I want to share with you a couple of the biggest myths about sex trafficking. I think the most common misconception is that abusers will kidnap their victims and take them away from their homes, when in reality, most sex trafficking victims are being victimized in their own homes by people that they know well, and usually social media is a factor. So if you want to protect yourself and especially your children from sex trafficking and from predatory behavior online, you can follow me for more information at _verse on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. I'm a mom of 6 and a sex trafficking survivor, and one of the best ways that you can protect your kids from predatory behavior, whether it's online or in person, is to have the kind of relationship with your kids where they feel comfortable talking to you about anything. One of the best ways to foster that kind of a relationship is to be open and honest with them about mistakes that you've made, and to ask them for feedback on things that would help them feel more comfortable coming to you with uncomfortable conversations. For more ideas on how to protect your kids and keep them safe online, follow me at _verse. I'm a mom of 6 and a sex trafficking survivor, and one of the most important ways that you can keep your kids safe online is by having the passwords to their cell phones and their social media accounts, especially when they're first opening those accounts and learning how to be safe online. It's not a matter of privacy, it's a matter of safety. And one of our most important jobs as parents is to keep our kids safe, not only online, but in person, and to have the tough, uncomfortable conversations with them that help them to be more open and honest with you about situations that make them feel uncomfortable. For more tips on how to keep your kids safe, follow me at _verse. I'm a trafficking survivor, and one of the difficult things is that you don't always realize that you're being trafficked or abused or groomed. And so one of the things I try to get people to ask themselves is, am I free to leave? Am I safe to leave? And by safe, I mean, can you leave the situation, the group, the person, or the relationship without shame, without ridicule, and without being emotionally manipulated or guilt-tripped? And especially, can you leave and still be physically safe and not have to worry for your physical safety? If that's not the case, then maybe you need to reevaluate your relationship, your situation, your job, or your involvement in a group that is trying to emotionally manipulate you to stay. For more information about how I survived and thrived after sex trafficking, you can visit my website at thirdverstinvestments.com. I'm a mom of 6 and a sex trafficking survivor, and one of the ways that you can help your kids to stay safe from predatory behavior is to be vigilant about changes in their own behavior. So if they start wanting to avoid people, places, or activities that they previously enjoyed before, if they have lots of changes in their mood, like more sadness or especially more anger than usual, or if they start to get secretive or hiding behavior or isolating or not being willing to share things with you that they previously shared with you, these are all red flags and things you should be aware of in your kids. For more information about how I survived and thrived after sex trafficking, you can visit my website at thirdverseinvestments.com. I'm a mom of 6 and a sex trafficking survivor. And one of the reasons that kids sometimes don't want to share things with us, that whether it's something that's on their phone or something that happened at school, is because they're afraid of punishment and they're ashamed of what's happened. So it's really important for us to reassure our kids that no matter what we find on their phone or no matter what they did wrong at school today, we're still going to love them and care about them. For example, you might say, you know what, there might be something inappropriate on your phone, but if there is, I still love you and we're going to work through this together. For more information about how to parent and how I survived and thrived after sex trafficking, you can visit my website at thirdverseinvestments.com. I'm a mom of 6 and a sex trafficking survivor, and one of the best ways that we can stay connected to our kids is by not overreacting when something does go wrong, or when we confront them with a behavior that we know that they're doing that doesn't align with our values. Most of the time, our reaction to their behavior has a lot more to do with how we feel about ourselves than it has to do with how we feel about our kids. So if you're getting ready to confront one of your children about something that they're doing that you don't approve of, take some time to think about how you feel about yourself and how you feel about your child before you go into that confrontation. Reassuring our kids that we love them no matter what their behavior is helps them to keep coming back to us and trust us with information that may be hurtful or harmful and that could potentially protect them from a predator. For more information about how I survived and thrived after sex trafficking, you can visit my website at thirdverseinvestments.com. If you grew up in a toxic family system with one person controlling the behavior, information, thoughts, and emotions of everyone else, chances are you feel guilty doing any kind of self-care. As a PTSD survivor, I want to remind you that self-care is not selfish. Self-care is necessary for us to take the time to show up for ourselves in small ways and keep promises to ourselves that help us to feel more confident and to increase our self-worth. I'm a PTSD survivor, and I want to talk about toxic family systems. One thing that a lot of toxic family systems have in common is that there's one person around whom the entire system revolves. This can be a parent, but it can also be a grandparent or even an aunt or uncle who's really influential in the family system. Generally speaking, this person is an unhealed individual who has a lot of unmet emotional needs. This person is like the sun, and the rest of the family system has to orbit around them in order to keep the peace and make things work. The effect is that everybody else who's trapped in the family system has to change who they are in order to meet the needs of this one person. This can lead the other people in the family system to develop anxiety, depression, dissociation behaviors, and to generally have a crisis of identity about who they really are because they've been trying to please this one person for their entire lives. For more about how to exit and thrive after being in a toxic family situation, you can download a free chapter of my book at www.thirdverseinvestments.com. I'm a PTSD survivor, and if you grew up in a controlling family system, you may continue to seek out relationships with controlling people because they're familiar, and familiar feels safe. This can be a significant other, but it can also be a boss or a friendship or even another family member. For ideas on how to identify and exit these types of relationships, you can click the link in my bio to download a free chapter of my book. I'm a PTSD survivor, and if you grew up in a controlling family system, chances are that you have a really hard time having difficult conversations in your relationships. You probably also avoid conflict because conflicts and conversations with the controlling person in the family system felt unsafe. Chances are your thoughts, feelings, and opinions were either diminished or ignored, or it was just unsafe to have a conversation with the controlling person because of their anger. For more information on how to identify and exit controlling and abusive relationships, you can click the link in my bio to download the first chapter of my book for free. I'm a PTSD survivor, and if you grew up in a controlling family system, chances are that you struggle with identity issues, like not really knowing your own preferences or having trouble making decisions or even executing decisions you've already made. This happens because of the groupthink culture that exists in toxic family systems and because of trying to constantly people please the person who is in charge and in control of the family system. For more information on identifying and exiting controlling systems, you can click the link in my bio to download the first chapter of my book for free. I'm a PTSD survivor, and if you grew up in a controlling family system, chances are that you had to hide parts of yourself in order to be acceptable to the person who controlled the family system. This type of self-betrayal can lead to all kinds of mental health issues like anxiety and depression. For more information on how you can identify and exit controlling systems, you can click the link in my bio to download the first chapter of my book for free. I've been posting on my social media about identifying and exiting toxic family systems, and I was going to continue with that content today, talking about how to exit a toxic family system. But all I can think about are JJ and Tylee. JJ and Tylee are the children of my cousin Lori, and they were murdered senselessly and tragically because of a toxic family system. JJ and Tylee were murdered because the adults in their lives failed them. They were murdered because the adults in their lives had unhealed emotional wounds. They were murdered because of a toxic family system mixed with a harmful religious culture, mixed with religious extremism. They were murdered because of too many secrets in the family system. They were murdered because the family was more concerned with appearances than they were with accountability. As adults, it's our responsibility to heal our emotional wounds, no matter where they came from. As adults, it's our responsibility to tell the truth, no matter how painful it is, and no matter what family secrets it reveals. The only way that we can end generational trauma is by speaking up, telling the truth, and healing our own wounds. This work is not easy to do, but the lives of our children, their health, and their happiness are at stake. And frankly, that's what comes first. Remember JJ and Tylee, and don't let it happen again. As adults, it's our responsibility to heal our emotional wounds, no matter where they came from. As adults, it's our responsibility to tell the truth, no matter how painful it is, and no matter what family secrets it reveals. The only way that we can end generational trauma is by speaking up, telling the truth, and healing our own wounds. This work is not easy to do, but the lives of our children, their health, and their happiness are at stake. And frankly, that's what comes first. Remember JJ and Tylee, and don't let it happen again. If you're an adult, please allow the children in your lives to set their own boundaries around what kind of affection that they're willing to share with you. Instead of saying, "Give me a hug," or "Give me a kiss," a better practice would be to say, "Would you like a hug?" Better yet, allow the children in your lives to make a decision for themselves about whether they're going to share affection with you or not. If you're a parent, have a conversation with your child before you visit a relative and ask them what they feel comfortable with. Make it safe for your kids to say, "I don't want to give that person a hug," or "I don't feel comfortable around that person." Teach and model consent from an early age to keep yourself and your kids safe from predators, even if they're family members. I had 6 kids over the course of 15 years, and so of course I'm a very different mom now than I was when my older kids were younger. I think when I was a young mom, I believed that I could control my children's behavior by imposing lots of consequences and taking away privileges when they did something that I didn't like. But as an old mom, I realized that it's a far more effective technique to let kids experience the natural consequences of their decisions and then have a conversation with them about it afterwards. Of course, it is really important to have boundaries, but I think it's even more important to have conversations. When you explain to your kids why boundaries exist and how they're going to help to navigate life situations, it's a lot more effective than just imposing a consequence and using the "because I said so" parenting technique. For more on how I became a better parent after exiting abusive systems, you can download the first chapter of my book at third-verse.com. If you experienced a lot of shame as a child, not dealing with those shameful feelings can lead to a lot of anger as an adult. If you find yourself getting really angry with your children over something and it seems a little bit irrational, it could be because you were shamed for that behavior when you were a child. As a young mom, I found myself getting really angry with my children whenever they made a big mess, or especially if there was a spill in the kitchen. It wasn't until I got older and started going through therapy that I realized that a lot of the anger that I was feeling towards my kids came from things that I was shamed for when I was younger. Having a qualified therapist lead you through dealing with your feelings of shame and inadequacy from childhood is one of the best things that you can do to become a better parent. For more on how I exited a toxic family system and how it helped me become a better parent, you can download the first chapter of my book at third-verse.com. I'm a mom of 6 kids, and I think one of the most important things that we can do as parents is to admit our mistakes and apologize to our children. This was not a concept that was modeled to me when I was a child, and as a result, I thought that my parents were infallible. And so then I also thought I had to be infallible in order to be acceptable to my parents. Because I experienced so much shame around my imperfections, I ended up hiding my true self and stifling my own feelings so that I could fit into the perfectionist box and be acceptable to my parents. When we deal with our own shame, it makes it a lot easier for us as parents to admit our mistakes and apologize to our kids. And ultimately, those conversations are the ones that can be some of the most bonding conversations where our kids finally start to trust us. By admitting our failures, we make it safe for our kids to fail too. And we want them to fail in the environment where we're still taking care of them and we're still helping them navigate all of their life situations. For more on how I overcame a toxic family system and tried to become a better parent because of it, you can download the first chapter of my book at third-verse.com. If you grew up in an environment where you felt unsafe as a child, it can leave you with an unhealthy need to control your environment and other people when you're an adult. This need for control is an artificial means of creating a safe environment. Of course, most of us realize that we can't control everything and we can't control the way that other people behave. But when we don't heal those childhood wounds, we can carry that need for control into our relationships and especially into our relationships with our kids when we become parents. For more on how I healed my childhood wounds in an effort to try and become a better parent, you can download the first chapter of my book at third-verse.com. I'm a sex trafficking survivor, and there's been a lot of hype lately about Hollywood portrayals of children who are abducted from their homes and then sold into sexual slavery. The problem with this type of portrayal is that it takes awareness and resources away from a far more prevalent problem. Most kids who are the victims of sexual abuse and sexual assault are trafficked and victimized by adults in their own home, like family members or other trusted adults in the community. If we as parents want to keep our children safe from predatory behavior, we need to learn and understand more about how predators groom and exploit their victims. My book on surviving and thriving after sex trafficking is now an Amazon bestseller, and you can download the first chapter for free at third-verse.com. I'm a sex trafficking survivor and a mom of 6. And one thing that I want people to understand about sex trafficking is that it can happen right in your own home. It can happen with adults that you know really well. A lot of times children are victimized and adults don't even realize what's happening. I was victimized by an adult babysitter, and my parents knew these people very well. They lived one. I was never kidnapped from my home. I slept in my own bed every single night. I went to school. I went to church. I played with friends. I played soccer. I had a seemingly normal life, and nobody knew what was going on because the predators were really good at making sure that us kids never told the secret about what was happening in their home. This happened back in the 80s, and nowadays with the internet, it's a lot easier to victimize children on social media. So if we as parents want to keep our children safe, we have to be vigilant about the relationships our kids have with the adults in their lives, and we also have to help them with their social media settings and be vigilant about who they're having conversations with online. For more about how I survived and thrived after sex trafficking, you can download the first chapter of my #1 Amazon bestseller at third-verse.com. I'm a sex trafficking survivor and a mom of 6. And I was watching an interview with a sexual predator one time, and the interviewer was asking the predator how they chose their victims. And this particular predator said that he looked for victims who did not have a strong male influence or other adult in their life that he perceived as a threat. This is a bit of a wake-up call for those of us who are adults who have children in our lives that we want to protect. This particular predator indicated that an adult was a threat if they were really involved in their child's life and if they seemed to have a strong presence about them. Now, this doesn't have to mean physical strength. It can mean just somebody who's willing to walk up and talk to an individual who is involved with our children. If we're willing to have one-on-one, face-to-face conversations with all of the adults in our children's lives, then we are perceived as a threat to predators who are trying to isolate our children. As a mom of 6 kids, I can totally understand how overwhelming it can feel to be that involved in your kids' lives. It's a lot easier to drop our kids off at a practice or at a play date without having interaction with the adults who are involved. Staying alert and involved with all of the relationships in our kids' lives is one of the best ways that we can protect them. For more on how I survived and thrived after sex trafficking, you can visit my website at third-first.com. I'm a sex trafficking survivor, and Operation Underground Railroad and Tim Ballard have been in the news a lot lately, so I wanted to weigh in on 3 of the things that bother me about this organization and about Tim Ballard. First of all, the name Operation Underground Railroad is problematic because it takes its name from the Underground Railroad, which was a system of tunnels and passageways that were run by free Black people to help enslaved Black people escape from slavery. There were abolitionists and other people who contributed to the escapes, and there were people that helped out, but I think it's very problematic to refer to sex trafficking victims as slaves. I think it's disrespectful to enslaved people both in the past and in the present. Although there are aspects of sex trafficking that are similar to slavery, it's nowhere near the same experience. And as a survivor myself, I think that it's problematic to put sex trafficking into a small box of somebody being kidnapped from their home and sold into sexual slavery. The reality is that sex trafficking is a complex problem, and it's only part of the problem. Really, the people who are being trafficked the most are being trafficked for labor. And those people who are being sex trafficked, a lot of times, in fact, the majority of the time, are being trafficked by people that they know in their own homes. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree, and follow me for part 2 and 3. I'm a sex trafficking survivor, and this is part 2 of what bothers me about Operation Underground Railroad and Tim Ballard. According to several articles that are posted on Vice News' website, the jumps that Operation Underground Railroad uses to free children from sexual slavery are extremely inefficient financially and also produce very few results, if any. Also, anecdotal information from people who have actually worked with the organization have said that OUR doesn't actually provide adequate aftercare to survivors. OUR is a huge organization with lots of fundraising power and a ton of money, mostly fueled by Tim Ballard's connections to powerful people and people in government positions. The model that OUR represents as being the biggest problem in sex trafficking is when people are kidnapped and sold into sexual slavery, and this is only a small percentage of the problem. So when people donate to OUR, it takes resources away from the organizations that are fighting trafficking here at home, and especially the most prevalent form of trafficking, which is actually labor trafficking. People wanting to donate money to end sexual slavery, as they call it, or end sex trafficking, whether it's here at home or abroad, should do their research into the organization and how their money is spent, and whether or not it's spent efficiently. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree, and follow me for part 1 and part 3. I'm a sex trafficking survivor, and this is part 3 of problems with Operation Underground Railroad and Tim Ballard. The movie Sound of Freedom, which was sponsored by OUR, starring Jim Caviezel as Tim Ballard, is the story of a young boy who is kidnapped by a sexual predator. The biggest problem with this type of portrayal is that victims deserve the right to tell their own stories. And the young man who was depicted in the movie Sound of Freedom had his story co-opted by Tim Ballard in an effort for Tim Ballard to make himself look like a grand hero in the tale of someone else's story. Victims also have the right to not have their story told and to not be exploited by any person or organization for their own gain. And this isn't the first time that Operation Underground Railroad and Tim Ballard have co-opted someone else's story as their own. Vice News reported that a young woman who escaped from her captors was given aftercare services by Operation Underground Railroad, and later we found that Tim Ballard was claiming that he was the one who rescued this young girl. There's one more issue that I want to talk about with regards to Operation Underground Railroad and Tim Ballard, so follow for part 4 and to watch parts 1 and 2. I'm a sex trafficking survivor, and I want you to know that yesterday, 5 women came forward and filed a lawsuit against Tim Ballard and Operation Underground Railroad. The lawsuit alleges that Ballard have committed sexual assault and battery, conspiracy, fraud, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and outrage. A favorite comment of supporters of Tim Ballard is that if you're against Tim Ballard and OUR, then you must be for sex trafficking. First of all, this is a pretty ridiculous claim. And secondly, as a survivor myself, I can attest that when you come forward to report somebody for sexual abuse or sexual assault and you're not believed, it can be just as traumatizing as the initial assault was itself. Fox 13 in Salt Lake has posted the entirety of the lawsuit on their website, and it includes the allegations from these 5 brave women who came forward. I encourage you to read the lawsuit in its entirety and make a determination for yourself if you believe that Tim Ballard's actions were honorable or acceptable. I want to express my gratitude to these 5 brave women for coming forward against somebody as powerful and well-connected as Tim Ballard. I hope as a society we get better at believing victims and confront our own shame that comes up when somebody we love or care about has been accused of doing something wrong. I'm a sex trafficking survivor, and yesterday I made a post about the 5 courageous women who came forward and filed a lawsuit against Tim Ballard for grooming, battery, and assault. And I commented about how when survivors come forward and they're not believed, the trauma of not being believed can be just as damaging as the original assault was. And I got this comment: feel traumatized because nobody believes you. And then at the end he says, boom, roasted. And while I appreciate the Office reference very much, it kind of made me laugh that you spelled liar wrong, because that's like lying down kind of a liar, and not the kind of liar who's not telling the truth. Either way, I feel sorry for the people in your life, because you're obviously not a safe person to talk to about traumatic things. But I would hope that if your daughter or your sister or your wife or your girlfriend came to you and told you that they had been attacked or assaulted, that the first words that came out of your mouth wouldn't be, nobody believes you. The punk rock runner, I'm guessing that the reason why you acted with such contempt towards me is because at some point somebody didn't believe you when you really needed them to. So I genuinely hope that you get the healing that you need so you can learn to show up for the people in your life. Hey there, this is just a friendly reminder that less than 6% of reported SA cases are found to be fraudulent or false. And when SA is reported to law enforcement, that number jumps down to 3%. So if you're still supporting Tim Ballard, you might want to go and read the 2 lawsuits that have been filed against him and read the victim statements and make a decision for yourself.
So for those just catching up, Blaze has been taken by his mother and uncle, and they have doomsday beliefs similar to Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. They went from Arizona and flew him to Boise, Idaho, and now we are looking for them, and a warrant is out for their arrest. We need to find 16-year-old Blaze. And Brooke Hale, his uncle, who they claim is the leader of this doomsday group. Does this sound familiar? Is he the Alex Cox of this group? It sounds very familiar. We're going to get to that.
Even now, if somebody would come out and denounce Chad Daybell and his teachings, I know he's been excommunicated, but Lori hasn't. And she was teaching the same things. And this is what's dangerous about it. In that patriarchal blessing, Chad is talking about the church of the firstborn. Like, this is a real church that he is forming. And those ideas are still out there. And his followers are still out there. There are still people out there who believe these teachings. So I've been thinking a lot about my time in the LDS church. And I think that what I needed when I was in there was a really good and understanding bishop, one who would actually listen to me and not give me apologetic answers to all of my questions about the church. I also got to thinking, while the bishop has a calling that is technically a priesthood designation, the main things that he does is preside over meetings and meet with members, and you don't really need to have the priesthood in order to do that. So a woman could totally do that. So I'm going to officially declare myself the first female bishop of the TikTok ward. So if you're a doubting or progressive member or even a post-Mormon and you have questions about the gospel topic essays or the policies of the church, or you just want to vent about something that's frustrating you, come make an appointment. My door is open. If you have a question, ask the bishop. Okay, so I'm just going to say in front of the whole ward. Hello, beautiful humans of the Digital First Ward. I'm Bishop Megan, and I wanted to come on here today to tell you that I got a question yesterday from a potential ward member that asked, queer souls allowed? And I just want to say that as a member of the LGBTQ community myself, that yes, a resounding 100% yes. In fact, the 2015 exclusion policy is one of the main reasons why I'm here in the first place. So my only item of ward business today is to announce the January 2024 inclusion policy, which extends a welcome to everybody, all people of everywhere, regardless of your gender, sexual orientation, your race. All people are welcome, and the benefits of this community are yours to enjoy 100% without restrictions. Now, the stake president's probably still not going to let you go to the temple, but you don't want to go to the temple. It's weird in there. President, you wanted to see me? Yeah. Hello, beautiful humans. It's Megan, self-declared bishop of the Digital First Ward. Thanks for joining me for a quick Sunday message. Today, I just want to say that when you're brought up your entire life to say, I know this is true, it can be really scary when you find out that you don't actually know. But I just want to tell you that I've found a lot of joy in the space of I don't know, because it opens up the world to all of these possibilities that I refused to consider before because I thought everyone else was wrong and that we as Mormons were right. And so I've just been really enjoying all of the different ideas and possibilities that are out there in this space of I don't know. And I hope that if you're doubting or having trouble, that you can find some solace in that space as well. So enjoy your second Saturday and share this message with your friends. Hello, beautiful humans. It's Megan, self-declared bishop of the Digital First Ward. And I wanted to come on here today to tell you, first of all, there's no joining requirements. If you want to be a member of the Digital First Ward, everyone is welcome. All you have to do is follow along and share these messages with your friends. There are some members' benefits that you can enjoy. One of the things that I learned when I was first discovering how to set healthy boundaries for myself is that I needed to have a quick, ready-to-go excuse for things when I didn't want to do something. And I needed to learn to stop over-explaining myself and offering some kind of an elaborate reason why I didn't want to do something. So I developed this idea of just, I have an appointment. So if I didn't want to accept an invitation somewhere or an assignment of some kind, especially a church assignment, I would just say, oh, I'm sorry, I have an appointment. And that was all. I would not elaborate, and I just wanted people to take that as a complete answer. And if they did elaborate and say, oh, where are you going? I would say, I don't feel comfortable talking about it. So for those of you who struggle to set boundaries and those of you who struggle with over-explaining, I want to tell you right now that as a member of the Digital First Ward, you can tell people anytime that you have an appointment with your bishop. Now, if you need it to be something that's concrete and legit, all you have to do is send me a DM that says, I would like to have an appointment. Tell me the date and time, and I will send you a DM back confirming the date and time of our appointment. Now, this appointment isn't actually going to take place, but you can tell people, oh, I've got an appointment with my bishop on Tuesday night at 7 p.m. I'm sorry, I can't come. Just one of the wonderful services that we're going to offer here at the Digital First Ward. I hope you guys have a great day. Share with your friends. Hello, beautiful humans. It's Megan, self-declared bishop of the Digital First Ward. It's a little bit of a longer message today, so I'm going to TLDR it for you. You are worthy. Full stop. So you can go tell now whoever you want to in your life that you've been declared worthy by your bishop. I used to spend a lot of time and emotional energy trying to fit myself into the tiny little box that is Mormonism, and trying to gain acceptance and love, worthiness from people who didn't really know me. And at some point I made a decision that my worthiness and my standing with God or my higher power did not have anything to do with a man sitting in an office who really had no training to give me any kind of judgment whatsoever. Here's where we get into a little bit of bad bishop stories, but one of my bishops was just an uninformed person. He was bigoted, he was racist, he was homophobic and misogynistic. And almost every time I met with him, I left there feeling like less of a human being. And I really don't think that our worthiness should be determined by anybody else but us. You are worthy because you are a human being that exists on this planet. You're worthy of love, you're worthy of acceptance, you're worthy of belonging, you're worthy of good treatment, you're worthy of respect. And nobody, including me, really, should tell you any different. Your worthiness comes from who you are and the fact that you exist. And whatever things that you do outside of that, whether they be good or bad, you know, when we do bad things, it doesn't make us less worthy as a human being. It makes us need to have some kind of correction with our values and what we believe and what resonates with us and what aligns with the things that make us happy. And our worthiness should never be determined by some other human being, because human beings are going to get it wrong, and they do a lot of the time. So the bottom line is, you're worthy, I'm worthy, and I think worthiness interviews should just end. But we all know the church is never going to do that, so that's why the digital first word exists. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and go and love yourself and share with your friends. Hey everyone, it's Megan, self-declared bishop of the Digital First Ward. You know, I always like to have something positive to focus on, so I thought today that I would think about some of the positive things that happened during my time in the Mormon Church and some of the positive things about Mormonism. And I got to thinking that one of the things I really loved was singing primary songs. Yeah, I just really loved singing as a child, and then, you know, later as an adult, one of my jobs was to play the piano in the primary, and I loved it because you just got to show up and play songs, and it was really fun. So that was one of the things I really liked about being in a Mormon church, was singing those primary songs. Of course, a lot of them were about families being together forever, and I grew up in a toxic family system, so there were a lot of family members I didn't want to be with forever. And then, you know, later on when I got married, but my husband wasn't coming to church, and he never went through the temple, so I wasn't sealed to my children. So a lot of those songs actually felt kind of hurtful, because they were always talking about families being together forever, and that wasn't going to be my family, you know. And then there's some of the other problematic things, like singing songs and like memorizing them as a way to indoctrinate children. Yeah, from the time that you're 3 until you're 12, like you're in primary learning all of these songs and memorizing all these scriptures and stuff, so it is kind of like indoctrination. And also, high control groups use group singing and group chanting as a way to have further manipulation over their members, sort of like a cult. So I guess that wasn't such a good part of Mormonism. Oh well, I'll try again tomorrow. Hello, beautiful humans. It's Megan, self-declared bishop of the Digital First Ward. You know, one of the things that the Mormon Church is really good at, and by good, I mean actually they're really bad at, is having inside and outside speak. What I mean by that is they'll use words and phrases that mean something different to people outside the religion than they do to the people who are inside the religion. One of the ways I've seen them do this most often is in the way they speak about accepting LGBTQ people into the church. For example, visitors who come to the church website and put LGBTQ in the search bar will come up with this as the second result: same-sex attraction, kindness, inclusion, and respect for all of God's children. However, members coming to the topics and questions section of the website will scroll down to see this scripture from Leviticus 20:13, which reads, "If a man also lie with mankind as he lieth with a woman, both of them have committed abomination, they shall surely be put to." So this is a sincere question to the leadership of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Do you wish death on LGBTQ people? Because if you don't, you may want to consider changing the scripture that's on your website. Inside versus outside dialogue is one of the ways that high control groups keep their members controlled and manipulated. And I want to say thanks to the Analyzing Mormonism podcast and Natasha Helfer for bringing this out in their most recent episode. Hello, beautiful humans. Some of you know that I wrote a book about my experiences in healing from trauma, PTSD, religious trauma. It is called I Walked Through Fire to Get Here. Here it is. I need some reviews on Amazon. For the next couple of days, I'm going to be sending out free copies of my book to anybody who's willing to leave me an honest Amazon review. All you have to do is email me at megan@third-first.com, or you can just send me a DM on this app right here, and I will send you a free digital copy of my book. And then when you're done reading it, I'll send you a link to review it. It's helping me get the word out to people who are survivors, also a source of hope and healing for anybody who's been through a traumatic experience or deconstructed from high demand religion. Hello, beautiful humans of the Digital First Word. Today, I want to give a shout out to my amazing sister who was just accepted into a master's program where she's going to be studying LGBTQ issues, specifically trans teens and mental health issues at the intersection of teen lives and issues in and out of the LDS Church. I am so happy to have more compassionate people studying these issues in a place where they can have good influence over policymakers both in and out of the church. So congratulations to my amazing sister, and everyone out there, be kind to each other. Hello, beautiful humans. Did you know that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints claims to have the largest women's organization in the world? Although lately they have started to say it's one of the largest women's organizations in the world. But considering the fact that when you turn 18, you become a member of the Relief Society by default, not that you're enrolling in the organization, the church claims that the Relief Society organization has about 7 million members, infinitesimally smaller than the Young Women's Christian Association, or the YWCA, which has over 25 million members worldwide. We also don't know if that number is accurate because we know that the church leaves members on rolls of the church even after they stop attending, and even after they've died in some cases. If you're a non-attending member, the church will leave your name on the records until you turn 110, unless somebody informs them of your death. And also, here's just a reminder that the most powerful woman in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the president of the women's organization. But if she wants to make any changes to the organization, she has to get permission from the First Presidency, which is comprised of men. Additionally, even though she's the most powerful woman in the church, she's outranked by anybody who is a 12-year-old male. Hello, beautiful humans. I'm getting ready to send out invitations to my very first Ask Megan Live. It's going to be a live Q&A session. You can ask me anything, but I want to have some topics ready to go. So can you please put in the comments some of the topics that you would like to focus on for our very first Ask Megan Live, which is going to happen in just a couple of weeks. I would love to hear your thoughts. For example, some of the questions that I get most often are about healthy parenting strategy, how to deal with kids using the internet and social media, a lot of questions about meditation practices, peaceful practices. Some of you know that I've been going through the Marie Kondo method in my house, so I've gotten some questions about those things. So just give me some examples of things that you would like to talk about on our very first Ask Megan Live. Hello, beautiful humans. Save the date, because this Thursday, the 21st of March at 8 p.m. is going to be your first opportunity to connect with me live on YouTube for Ask Megan Live. All you have to do, if you want to participate and get the private link that I'm going to send out, is go to my website, third-first.com. I'll put a link below, and click on the Ask Megan button and submit a free question. When you submit your free question, it puts you on a list of the people who will get the link. So not everybody gets it. It's not going to be just open to the public. You have to go on there and submit a question to get it. I've gotten a bunch of questions submitted already. I've kind of narrowed it down to I think what we're going to focus on, and I'm super excited to connect with all of you guys live on YouTube this coming Thursday. Tell your... Hello, beautiful humans. I've had some wild ups and downs this last week, but tomorrow is going to be a once-in-a-lifetime cosmic event. I'm not talking about the eclipse. I'm talking about the launch of my new podcast. It's called The Midlife Revolution, and you can find it on Apple and Spotify and YouTube and everywhere you consume your podcasts. Head over to YouTube and join my channel at _verse to follow along, or subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts.
You and I probably have a lot in common. I'm a mom. I work hard to provide for my family. I have goals and dreams, things I'm good at and things I wish I did better. A few years ago, I was on a treadmill. I think most of us find ourselves there at one time or another. We find ourselves repeating the same old habits and patterns, not really going anywhere. And maybe the treadmill we're on isn't even ours. Maybe it's made up of the expectations of other people. At a critical time in my life, I had a couple of conversations that made me hit the big red stop button on the treadmill. Then I did something revolutionary. I stepped off. I looked around at my life and asked myself, is this what I really want? Some people would call that a midlife crisis, but I didn't radically change my clothing style or buy a sports car. Instead, I started making small changes to my habits and routines. What I noticed was that one small change led to another, and over time, the difference was revolutionary. I think most people define midlife as a certain age, but maybe that's just the time when we take what was given to us in the beginning of our lives and decide to mold it into what we want for us, and not for anyone else. You can make small changes that are revolutionary too, like maybe listening to a new podcast. It's just one small thing, but it also might just be revolutionary.
Hey, I have a quick question for you. If you're a male executive and you're on a Zoom call with a female executive, and the female executive is giving you some pushback because she believes that you have done something that is incorrect in the transaction of business, is it appropriate for you as a male executive to call the female executive young lady? I mean, I realize it could maybe be sort of flattering or a term of endearment if it's a friendly conversation, if you know each other really well, but I'm just wondering, like in the business context, if it's appropriate for an older male to call a younger female young lady when he's clearly attempting to do that in order to belittle said female executive. Because I could have referred to him as old man. Would that have been appropriate? I'm actually genuinely curious about this. Please let me know in the comments.
At a critical time in my life, I had a couple of conversations that made me hit the big red stop button on the treadmill. Then I did something revolutionary. I stepped off. I looked around at my life and asked myself, is this what I really want? Some people would call that a midlife crisis, but I didn't radically change my clothing style or buy a sports car. Instead, I started making small changes to my habits and routines. What I noticed was that one small change led to another, and over time, the difference was revolutionary. I think most people define midlife as a certain age, but maybe that's just the time when we take what was given to us in the beginning of our lives and decide to mold it into what we want for us, and not for anyone else. You can make small changes that are revolutionary too, like maybe listening to a new podcast. It's just one small thing, but it also might just be revolutionary. I'm a PTSD survivor, and if you grew up in a controlling family system, chances are that you had to hide parts of yourself in order to be acceptable to the person who controlled the family system. This type of self-betrayal can lead to all kinds of mental health issues like anxiety and depression. For more information on how you can identify and exit controlling systems, you can click the link in my bio to download the first chapter of my book for free. And I marveled at the fact that I could just sit there alone and enjoy all of those sounds and sights and sensations without feeling the need to reach out for a connection from anybody else. Because by that time, I had gotten to the point where I really loved and enjoyed my own company. I was able to sit with my own thoughts because they weren't harmful thoughts anymore. I had learned to love all of the parts of myself, and I wasn't perfect at this point, and I certainly wasn't done with therapy at this point, but I thought that it was amazing that I had come that far in just short of a year to be able to sit alone with myself in a small corner of Central Park and just enjoy the world around me without worrying about what other people thought about a person sitting alone on a park bench, and if they thought I was pathetic or sad or by myself. I really didn't care.
It was pretty easy to distinguish where that burial site was.
And I appreciate that.
It was hidden, though.
Judge, I'm going to
Mr. Pryor,
object.
I'm going to object to you talking over the top of his response, Mr. Pryor. Let him finish his answer.
And Judge, it's non-responsive.
Mr. Pryor, you just ran over me. Stop cutting people off in your cross, please, including me. Let the witness finish, and we'll never get an accurate record if you keep doing that. So please do that.
And Judge, my objection is non-responsive. I asked him about the electronic data. I didn't ask him about the rest of this colloquy.
Your Honor,
Ask another question, Mr. Pryor. We'll never get an accurate record if you keep doing that. So please do that. Ask another question, Mr. Pryor. Ask another question, Mr. Pryor.
Did you mention about him going downstairs to meet with Tammy, going downstairs to meet with Chad at any point?
Yes.
Okay, and what did you make reference to?
When I was talking to Chad with my father,
Yeah.
he said that Tammy had gone down to say that she had thrown up and was feeling a little better and then was going to bed.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know.
So I was telling Al that Tammy, I don't remember if we told you this, but Tammy was here the other day and said how the Rexburg police are ridiculous. And she told me that as
We know already.
converse with her. And then Al was laughing at that so hard, so I'm like, he's going to be handling the police from now on.
Yeah, he can handle Hermosillo.
Yeah, it would time. It doesn't count. It doesn't count for me. Or she would say, for example, to me or to other people, she was saying it doesn't count for you either. And she would do it in such a way where she would hit something and she would say, doesn't count for me.
At some point, did you learn Kylie and JJ had been listed as missing?
Yes.
Do you recall how you learned that?
Melanie called me to tell me that that the kids were missing.
Did you talk to Alex about that?
Yes.
What did he say?
He didn't offer any information. The last information I had from Lori was that JJ was with Kay, and then Kay was the one that was asking for a welfare check for JJ. So then I asked him, I said, well, why is Kay asking for a welfare check on JJ if she's the one that has JJ? And Alex just said, yeah, huh? That was all the answer he gave me.
Here's a bombshell from the Chad Daybell trial. On the morning of October 19th, Garth Daybell called 911, said that he'd found his mother. Chad then took the phone. Tammy had rolled out of bed and that she was clearly dead. This narrative that he woke up when Tammy fell out of bed and found that she was dead. And today, there was a bombshell testimony from a friend of Garth Daybell.
I remember he said that he found her when he got home from work, and he didn't know where his father was. She said she was kind of pale and her lips were blue.
When would work end at the haunted mill?
We usually left work around 12:30ish, depending on how busy it was, we would go later. So some nights we'd go until like 1 or 1:30.
Was he clear to you in his statement that he's the one that found his mom?
Yes.
And was he clear in his statement that his dad wasn't there?
Yes.
I have no further questions.
I have struggled with anxiety for years, and it was feeling very unmanageable. And I felt like there was a being that was with me. And I talked to my parents about it. My dad cast it out using the power of the priesthood. And then I felt better afterwards.
When you say the power of the priesthood, what do you mean by that?
The power of God given by the laying on of hands.
And would you describe it as just a feeling? Would that be a fair way to describe it?
I felt like there is an actual person trying to control me.
Did you feel relieved? Some recovery as a result of that?
I instantly felt better. I felt like the individual that was trying to affect my body was gone.
And this is something that is not inconsistent with the LDS teachings, light and dark, and these sort of entities. Would that be fair?
And all Christianity and the Bible, the Savior would cast spirits out of people.
If we want to live a fully healed and truly authentic life, we need to question everything. I'm constantly in the process of examining really big things, like whether or not I want to continue to live in the United States, and really small things, like are my kitchen cabinets organized in the most efficient manner for doing dishes and prepping food? These examinations have led to changes both big and small, but every change along the way has made my life better and happier and more peaceful. And that's what the midlife revolution is all about. It's getting to a point in your life where you're willing to start questioning everything and making some little changes.
You guys, I'm super excited that they're going to be sweeping my street pretty soon. And it's going to happen. And there's all these rules about it. But if I have questions, look who I have to call. What the? Hello, beautiful humans. I know that Father's Day can be a really difficult day for a lot of people, and so I'd like you to join me tonight over on my YouTube channel at 6 p.m. Central. We're going to talk about all things Father's Day, healing emotional wounds, and trying to show up better for the fathers and the men in our lives. I would really love it if you join me for some live chat and some healing.
I do want to talk a little bit about an organization called the Seven Gatherers. You're familiar with that, right?
No, I'm not.
Okay. To your knowledge, your wife isn't a member of the Seven Gatherers, right?
I don't know anything about Seven Gatherers.
Okay. I want to talk to you a little bit about an organization that I think you're affiliated with called Seven Gatherers. Are you familiar with the term Seven Gatherers?
I'm not.
You're not. Okay. Came across some information on something called Seven Gatherers. Remember that?
It doesn't really ring a bell.
Okay. And you don't recall being involved with an organization called the Seven Gatherers with Melanie Gibb and Lori and Saluma Pastenes?
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel's testifying.
Ms. Pastenes, the prosecuting attorney brought up the topic of the Seven Gatherers.
Yes.
That has a unique context in that it talks about 7 people. Is that right?
Yes.
And the 7 people that were members of the Seven Gatherers would have been who, ma'am?
Nicole, Christina, Serena, Gib, Melanie Pulaski, Laurie.
Ms. Pastenes, the prosecuting attorney brought up the topic of the Seven Gatherers.
Yes.
Talks about 7 people. Is that right?
Yes.
And the 7 people that were members of the Seven Gatherers would have been who, ma'am?
It was a group to share information with, and also we were together in Zoom meetings doing casting.
That it was Melanie Gibb. Is that right?
Yes.
And it was Melanie Boudreau, aka Pulaski, correct?
Correct.
Are you familiar with the term Seven Gatherers?
I'm not.
You're not. Okay. Something called Seven Gatherers. Remember that?
It doesn't really ring a bell.
Okay.
I don't remember being a part of a group of the Seven Gatherers.
Okay.
I liked also that they said some are more Mormon than others, and some follow the rules more than others do, and there's no judgment, there's no stigma or shame, there's no gender stereotypes. That I'm going to push back on a little bit. I like that they said that there's no judgment. And people might say out loud, I don't judge you, you just do what you want. But there's a lot of internal judgment. There's a lot of internal shame. And church leaderships have a pretty narrow prescription of how they're supposed to treat members who don't follow the rules. Speaking of that, one of the first things that Taylor mentions is that she got married very young, and her mom knew that she and her boyfriend were happy before they got married, that she was kind of a wild child, partying and things like that. And then she says casually that they got married in the temple. Well, I'm really confused as to how that actually happened, because in the Mormon faith, if you're not following the rules, you're not allowed to go into the temple. And that they've covered it up this entire time. All of that stuff just has really disturbed me over the last couple of days, and I've kind of been in this rabbit hole. I would really like to have your opinion, because I'm really having a hard time with this, and I'm really upset about just the entire dynamic of, like, it feels like the church leaders have been lying to us all along. So whenever I talk about Joseph Smith's polygamy, I get some really pat responses from apologists. And one of them is that, oh, back then, lots of people got married really young. Lots of younger girls were marrying older men. Respectfully, I disagree with you, because according to the 1830 census, which is the year the church was founded, the average age for young women to get married was 19. And when they did marry as 19-year-olds, they were marrying other 19, 20, 21, 22-year-olds, not somebody 15 years older than them. So Joseph Smith was 29 when he married Helen Mar Kimball, who was 14. That's not normal. And it wasn't normal back then. Another comment that I get frequently from LDS apologists whenever I want to talk about Joseph Smith's polygamy, him marrying all of those women, over 30 of them, it had nothing to do with sex. Which is a wild claim to make. During the Temple Lot trial, several of his wives testified that they slept in the same room with him, that they lived together as husband and wife. He was my husband in every sense of the word. This is some of the things that those women said when they testified. Whether or not he had sex with his teenage wives, he absolutely took their lives, meaning he took away their ability to have a life, to socialize with their friends, to socialize as single women, which is what they would have been doing if they had not been married to Joseph. Helen Mar Kimball even wrote in her journal that she was so sad to be missing out on going to dances and socializing with her other friends. She was 14 when Joseph married her. He took the lives of all those women. He took that time in their life. And people fail to realize how important and impactful that is. You have to acknowledge the fact that he took away their ability to have a normal life. If you are going through a faith crisis, I just want to reassure you that it is a 100% normal human experience to go through a faith crisis. Speaking as someone who was very religious for the first 45 years of my life, I thought that my whole world was ending when I started to experience a faith crisis. But I just want to reassure you that there are tools out there for you, and it's not that the world is ending, but sometimes your worldview needs to change. And that's okay. Hundreds of thousands of people have been through exactly the same thing that you're going through right now, and you will get to the other side. You will find peace again, you'll find happiness again, you'll find hope again, and whether you decide to stay in religion or leave religion altogether, or if you find a place somewhere in between,
Just know that there are lots of people out here just like you, and we're here supporting you no matter what. Take care of yourself, be kind to yourself, and give yourself time. You'll be okay. Why is it so easy for us to love other people and so hard for us to love ourselves? Why is it so easy for us to forgive other people and so hard for us to forgive ourselves? I believe, beautiful human, that every challenge that you're facing right now could be made easier if you would make the decision that is the most loving decision for you. The one that prioritizes your needs and your experiences and doesn't consider the needs and experiences of everyone else involved in the equation. Not to be selfish about it, but just to love yourself and prioritize yourself so that you can be a better human being for the other beautiful human beings in your life. Let me know what you think.
What made you guys see us as human?
I think because I was rejected and abandoned by my family and my community for who I am, and because I know what it feels like to try and fit yourself into a little box or change yourself to try to fit in when you know that what you inherently are is never going to be acceptable. And I know what that feels like, that kind of abandonment and self-betrayal. And I just see all human beings as beautiful and all human being experiences as valid. And I want to listen to the stories of other people who are in circumstances that they feel like they can't change, because I think that's more common than we think it is. And also, I just care about people more than I care about money. Joseph Smith was 29 when he married Helen Mar Kimball, who was 14. So I want to say thank you to the commenter who pointed out that I was incorrect about this. Joseph Smith was actually 37 when he married Helen Mar Kimball, who was 14. So that to me makes it even worse. And there are lots of apologists who say that SEX was not involved, it was a spiritual union. No, this is what predators do. They isolate their victims, they convince them that it is in their best interest to ally with them for some reason, and all they want is power, control, and access to SEX. It is the pattern of predators to do this over and over. Helen Mar Kimball's journal breaks my heart, and I'm going to have a reading of it on my channel tomorrow. So follow me for that. Questions? Okay, so probably the main comment that I get, especially from faithful, believing members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints about the movie Heretic that they take issue with, is the opening scene on the park bench where the two sister missionaries are sitting there and they're having a conversation about pornography and flondoms and size, and many members are saying, oh, they would never have that discussion, that would never happen. Well, I think people are missing the little nuanced part at the end. The sister who's talking about all of these things turns to her companion and she says, what are some of the ways that you found God? And I can absolutely 100% confirm that something that Mormons do all the time is they try to turn everything into a spiritual experience. And so this young lady, having stumbled some sexual video, and what she relates is that the young woman was horrified when she found out that someone could hear what they were doing. She had a look of terror on her face. And the sister missionary says, yes, absolutely. Like she knew she'd done something wrong. And that's how I know that we're doing the right thing, because God tells us, you know, what we're supposed to do and not do. And absolutely, she should have felt ashamed about that. So if you miss that little nuance that she was actually bearing her testimony about pornography, that's what I found so hilarious, is that 100% Mormons will turn anything into a spiritual experience and then get up on open mic Sunday and tell some kind of wild and crazy story while the rest of us are sitting there wide-eyed and in shock because we can't believe that they're telling this story in a church setting and trying to relate it to their experience to God. So just in case you missed that nuance, that's there for you. So more questions about the movie Heretic, and probably the first reaction that I get from faithful believing members is like,
why put bad ideas into people's heads about how to harm missionaries? And I'm just going to say, first of all, the ideas are already there. People are already thinking about ways to harm people if they're predators. That's just the way that their mind works. But also, this movie involves a very elaborate game that would have taken many years and hundreds of thousands of dollars to set up. And I'm not saying that people don't have those kinds of resources, but it's pretty far-fetched to think that this movie would produce some kind of a copycat. Now, I'm not saying that it absolutely won't, because it's totally possible. But there's also an intellectual aspect to this particular game that if you were a person who wanted to make that kind of an elaborate game, you would do something that was specific to your goals. And also it would be kind of almost insulting to copy somebody else's, like almost like that's a low thing to do. That being said, I think that if anything, that young missionaries are going to use this as a cautionary tale to make sure that they're always following the rules, especially about meeting with people in their own homes. The rule is that you're supposed to go by a companionship. Missionaries are never allowed to be alone. And if you are a female companionship and you go into the house of a man, there's supposed to be another female present. Although, you guys, listen, predators sometimes work in pairs too. And I was trafficked by a couple, a man and a woman. So you can't prepare yourself for every single eventuality. And to make the claim that a movie like this is going to harm missionaries or put more missionaries in danger, they're already in danger. A lot of these young people are in foreign countries. They've given their passport to their mission president. They don't have a lot of their own money. A lot of them are sleep deprived. A lot of them are not fed well. It's just a dangerous situation to begin with. And my oldest daughter did serve a mission, but I'm so glad that none of my other children did, because what I learned from her, and I have a whole episode about this on my channel at the Midlife Revolution, what I learned from her is that while it was a good experience at the time, it was an unnecessary hardship. She could have learned a lot of those lessons just by living out on her own, not necessarily being subjected to the mind control that happens in that situation where you are brainwashed to say the same things over and over and to explain away abnormalities. And that's kind of one of the other things that I get out of this movie. You're going to have to follow me for a second one, I guess. I don't really feel like appearing on camera this morning, so please enjoy this video of my dog guarding his food. I was feeling super distracted this morning, and I was getting very overwhelmed by my list, and I was having a really hard time focusing. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna get up and just take a walk around and maybe I'll feel better. And I started thinking to myself, why is it that I'm feeling super distracted and super overwhelmed, and I feel like I'm not accomplishing anything, and it's almost noon? And then I remembered that I have ADHD and I haven't taken my medicine. That's all. Thank you. Goodbye. When I decided to leave the Mormon Church, I removed all of the Mormon artifacts from my home except for two things. This faceless Jesus that my daughter gave me for Christmas, because I love the idea of us not truly knowing Jesus until we do our own investigation and research. And this painting by Clark Kelly Price called Rescue at the Sweetwater, which is a scene where the Mormon pioneers were crossing the plains and they came up to the icy river, and many of them had to cross the river on foot. And many of them died from exposure, like this young man here who carried this baby across the river. And I kept it as a reminder that people left their homes, left everything they had, and suffered and starved and died and froze to death because one man made up this story that was going to help him to get what he wanted, which was power and access to more women. Mark, I'm going to speak to you kindly like I would to one of my clients. I'm a professional change maker. I help people make positive changes in their lives. This obsession that you have with replying to every comment on ex-Mormon creators' pages is not healthy. Why would you waste your time trying to convince people of something they can't be convinced of? I suspect, though, that you're trying to convince yourself. I think you believe that a testimony is strengthened in the bearing of it, and I think you believe that's what you're doing, is bearing your testimony. But if you really believe in the theology of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, then you know that we apostates have denied the Holy Ghost, and therefore it's outer darkness for us. We're a lost cause. So you would be a lot better off spending your time with the people you love and care about the most. And as for your comment that you can't deconstruct from your physical DNA, I'm going to push back on that one, because Lori Vallow Daybell is my first cousin. I share DNA with her, and yet I have not unalived any of my 6 children. And as for your homework, because I always give my clients a little bit of homework, something to journal on, think about this. If the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was not true, would you live your life any differently than you're living it right now? It's a good thing to ponder. Let me know. Do you realize what you did? I don't think you realize what you did. Hey, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, brothers and sisters, I have a question for you. Can we do a thought experiment real quick? Let's pretend for just a second that Joseph Smith never existed and God is going to restore his church to the earth now. And he's picked you. What would the church look like right now today? Would it be any different? Would there be things that you would want to ask God to do for his church? Would there be things that would be a priority to you, for example, that you would want to make sure was in the Church of Jesus Christ? I'm really curious. I would love a comment or a video. Okay, so when I posted this video, literally Austin replied to me and we got into a bit of back and forth because sometimes it's just fun to troll the trolls. I explained to her that this is not a hobby of mine. This is a business. I teach people how to identify and exit coercive and abusive situations. And she said, well, based on your following number, maybe you should get a part-time job. And so I told her, well, you know, the more you comment and engage, the better my numbers are. And so I appreciate your comments. You guys, she can't stop herself. She's still going over and over and over. So if you see her, you know, don't harass them, but maybe, you know, I don't know, like and help me get my numbers up so that we can show her what's up and, you know, engage. So I'm a mom of 6. I'm also an ex-Mormon. And my kids grew up around a lot of privileged people. And I remember interacting with the parents of their friends. And it always used to bug me when the parents would say, oh, I would do anything for my kids, because I wouldn't. There are lots of things I won't do for my kids. Will I leave my house in the middle of the night and come pick you up from a bad situation? Yes, 100%. Will I loan you money if you're in a tight spot within reason, circumstances, all of that kind of stuff? Sure. So there's lots of stuff I will do for my kids, almost anything. But one of the things I feel very strongly about that I will never ever do for my kids is to stop them from experiencing the natural consequences of their behavior. I think that's one of the best ways to teach kids those consequences, and without me stepping in to save them from it. One of the ways that we end up with all kinds of criminal behavior is people who are not held accountable as children, as teenagers, as young adults. Now, this originally came up for me today because of the Hunter Biden pardon, and I'm not going to make a political commentary at all, except to say that I think it's incredibly harmful for a parent to just step in and take those consequences away. It also applies to institutions and businesses and governments and other relationships as well. For example, one of the reasons why we ex-Mormons leave the church and then don't leave it alone is because we keep talking about our experiences so that the rest of the world knows and understands that not everybody has a positive experience with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The rest of the world needs to know that sometimes as an institution, the church behaves incredibly harmfully, like covering up SA or avoiding taxes by creating illegal shell companies. Holding people accountable, whether it's our children or an institution or another relational partner, means having some really difficult conversations. And some of us would much rather just avoid the conversation and pretend like nothing happened. But that's how people end up perpetuating bad behavior over and over. We have to have the difficult conversations in order for people to receive the natural consequences of their behavior, in order for institutions to be held accountable for their behavior. If we pretend like nothing happened, we guarantee it's going to happen again.
I recommend you don't try to write down things that any of us say. What you should write down are the things that only you hear. The time when this makes me laugh is in general conference. I sit on the stand and I watch people writing as fast as they can go. And I want to, at some point, just get up and go, hey, it's going to be online in 40 seconds.
David, I'm sorry, Susan's husband. Why are you so narcissistic? Why do you think that we're writing down what you're saying? How do you know that we're not taking notes about what we're feeling about what you're saying? But secretly, if I was writing down how I feel about what you were saying or what thoughts were coming into my mind as you were speaking, it would be that you lack empathy and that you have a need to be the center of attention and that your authoritarian control over people is not endearing.
Maybe one day I'll get married and you'll be my maid of honor. And during your toast you'll make everyone cry, and I'll finally see tears from my father. Maybe one day I'll get married and you'll be my maid of honor. And during your toast you'll make everyone cry, and I'll finally see tears from my father. Maybe
he addresses you by your first name.
So hi, Doormat Mom. We don't know each other yet, but I think we're about the same age. I'm a Gen X and my oldest daughter is 30 years old. And I was estranged from my son for a time. So everyone, this is Doormat Mom. She has an estranged son and she's relating an experience where they were both invited to the same event and the son approached her and called her by her first name. And then she asks what I would do or what you would do in that situation. And she says what she would do is just look at him with a sideways glance like this and then just disregard what he said. And that's not what I would do. I would treat him with kindness and respect. I know it probably felt disrespectful to you for him to call you by your first name instead of your preferred title, like Mom, for example. But he just may be expressing to you that he doesn't feel like that title fits with your actions right now. Adults call each other by their first names all the time. So what he's doing is saying, you're an adult, I'm an adult, we're both on the same playing field here. And at the end of your video, you say, everyone in the room knows who the problem is. And it's really not so much that there's a who, because it's two people. So both of you have a problem. And the problem is that there's no communication going on between the two of you about this interchange. Everyone in the room is probably feeling kind of awkward and uncomfortable about this interaction. So I guess my question to you is, do you want to have a relationship with your son, or do you want to just complain about his behavior? Because you can't really have both. If you want a relationship with your adult child who's estranged from you, the best thing that you can do is listen to their experiences and have an open conversation about the things that you brought to the table that might have been unhealthy too. Mothering is not a role, it's a relationship, it's a two-way street, and we as mothers don't have any right to have expectations of our kids that we haven't clearly communicated. And once our kids are adults, their lives are about them. They're not about us anymore. And the best way that we can engage with them and make sure that they want to keep communicating with us throughout our old age is to allow them to have the life that feels most peaceful to them. Let me know what you think.
Right. Being able to break things down into the non-technical terms helps everybody relate to it better.
Yeah, it's going to give you back your most valuable commodity, which is your time. We spend so much time and energy being drained from us when we have somebody like this in our lives, that having the tools to work with that person takes back that time and takes back that energy. First thing that we're going to do is learn about the tactics of manipulation and control, things that people say to us or do that we go, that was weird. I wonder why they did that. Well, it's because they're trying to manipulate you. So we learn about what the tactics are and how they show up in regular daily life. And then the last little bit of that first day is going to be sort of like triage. Like if you're in this kind of relationship right now and you need something right now today that you can say to this person next time you talk to them, here are some techniques that you can use. So they're going to leave the course that first day really understanding a lot more about what manipulation and control looks like, and having some real tried and true responses that they can use the very next time that they talk to that person.
So that's a perfect example of a narcissist and a bully. And
Yes.
that has something to do with the name of your series, right?
Yeah, so I think that the word narcissist and the concept of narcissism, it gets a little bit overused in the wrong situations. And I think a lot of people don't really understand it properly. I want to teach people some new vocabulary and maybe some different ways of referring to this. You are, for example, getting a divorce and you go into court and start acting like the biggest person in the room. And they start putting other people down and shaming people and stealing people's lunch money just as a means of feeling powerful. Narcissism is the equivalent of like out in the adult world, stealing people's lunch money, just taking their power away from them, making them feel small, making them feel like they're the problem, calling it bullying, because that's really what it is. It devalues the narcissist, and it also paints a race. How was TikTok yesterday without all the Americans on it? Do you guys enjoy yourselves? Just wondering. What are some of the things you experienced as a child growing up in Mormonism, especially as a man growing up in Mormonism, that sort of taught you that you needed these types of behaviors?
Well, let's first start off with the very obvious, from the time you're a little boy: power, priesthood, preside, authority, hold dominion over your family.
Mm-hmm.
You're taught you have the power of God, using the word power, authority, all of that. Gives you a sense of entitlement, and obviously thinking you're the only true church on the earth and you're a guy, where everything is just handed to you. And you don't really even see that growing up, but after the fact you do.
And so I'm throwing my entire family heritage away. I'm free. Where's the polyamory and the drugs?